So do you have like?
Hi, welcome everyone. I have Baye McNeil with us today, and thank you for joining. This is Seeking Sustainability Live number 48. We're almost at 50. Baye, thank
Wow.
you so much for taking the time to be here today.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Joy.
Thank you
Good to
so much.
finally meet you. I think we. I
Yeah,
think we've been like cyber related for at least
yeah,
a decade, but we never really talked.
right? Yeah, we often have interchanges and stuff on Twitter, but we never actually talked. This is a great chance, so thanks so much.
Yeah, you're
Do you
welcome.
want to start just briefly introducing yourself?
Well, okay, sure. My name is Baye McNeil. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. I came to Japan in 2004. Um, in 2008, I started a blog called Local Yokohama, and mostly I just wrote about my experiences living here in Japan as an African American, as a New Yorker, as a non-Japanese person, and it kind of picked up a lot of picked up. I had a huge readership, a huge following, and it was really popular. So on the strength of that, I wrote a couple of books and indie published them. The first book was Hi, My Name is Loco and I'm a Racist, and it did really well. It was listed in the top 10 books by expats and still in the top 5 list of expat books ever written. So that was really popular bestseller. And the second book I wrote was called Local Yokohama. It was kind of a book about teaching here in Japan, and that book also did very well. So on the strength of the books, I was approached by Japan Times about doing a column about Black life here in Japan, and I accepted, and that was in 2014. So since 2014, I've been a columnist for the Japan Times. My column is called Black Eye, and monthly I actually profile different Black people living here. I mean, the whole idea of Black Eye was to kind of act as a PR mechanism for Blackness here in Japan, because I feel like, and I think a lot of the problems that face people of African descent here in Japan is that there's not enough information about us, what we're doing here, and what we've done here. So I try to make a column that address that deficit, and it's done really well. It's actually it's grown internationally, and it made me pretty it 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 raised the profile of Black people here in Japan exponentially. So
Yeah, we'll talk a bit more about that
that's the whole
later.
introduction. That's
Yeah,
too
no,
long.
no, that was awesome. I was like, you're summing it all up. That's awesome. We're gonna talk
So
about
you have
loads of
questions. I
that.
want to answer all your questions in my
Yeah,
introduction.
no,
Huh?
that's great. Also, in your profile on your website, your website's beautiful, by the way, really
Thank you
nicely
very
laid out.
much.
And you talked about your activism as well. So, in 2015, you started with stopping a TV show on Japanese TV.
Yeah, that would be my first my first experience with activism here in Japan. There was at that time there was a, a group that performed in blackface called Rats and Star, and they were kind of Motown fans. I suppose they were in love with doo-wop music, so they used to dress up like Black people, put on fake afros and blackface and kind of Motown outfits and stuff, and they performed this doo-wop music. They were very popular in Japan since the 80s, or maybe even far back as the 70s. So they were really popular. And when I came to Japan, of course, I came across this stuff, and coming from a nation where that was completely offensive and inappropriate, I had a strong reaction to it. But I saw that my Japanese friends had no reaction to it except to applaud it. So I said, okay, let me just stay in my lane. And they were kind of old, and I figured, sooner or later they're going to die off like dinosaurs, and maybe they'll take that blackface with them. But then, come 2015, they was planning to appear on Music Fair, a program on Fuji TV, and in blackface. And it was kind of usual. They were on TV quite a bit, but this time around, They were planning to perform with a J-pop group called Momo Ito Club Zeto. And these girls, of course, if you ask Braxton Starr, why do you perform in blackface, they will always tell you it's because we have a great deal of respect for black people and black music and black culture. This was their, their iwake, their response to people criticizing them. So when I told them about the perform with a J-pop group that had nothing to do with black culture at all, I was like, "What's this about now? If you're doing blackface to show your love and pay homage to us, what's the deal with putting them in blackface?" So that's when I decided, all right, it's time to put these dinosaurs to rest. So, but I felt like it's not something that a foreigner should do. A foreigner shouldn't be the one coming to Japan telling them how they should be, how they should live, how their culture should be. So I made a petition that was targeting Japanese people, explain to them that your program, and particularly Fuji TV, is not local anymore. The whole world is watching your program, and the whole world is going to judge Japan as ignorant and racist if they see this stuff. So, and I told them how it's going to be perceived by Westerners. Not that it's necessarily racist, but it's going to be perceived as racist. Japan's going to be
Yeah.
labeled racist as a result.
You
And
you were saying that in a recent seminar as well. You said
yeah,
Japan cannot hide
you
in
can't
the
hide.
media.
You can't hide. All your
Everybody
media
sees it.
is international, is global now. So you have to take the global perspective into consideration. You can't just, keep putting out programming like it's local, and you only have to answer to the local, mindset and local proclivities. But I'm not sure all of the media outlets here have gotten the message yet. I'm working on it. I find that's my goal, to
Well,
try to reach all of them and let them
you
know.
had a really positive effect, right? That
I think so.
they
There hasn't been any
stopped.
blackface incidents since the last time. So that's
Right.
since 2018. I haven't seen any blackface in Japanese media, and that's significant.
That is
That's
significant.
significant because it was a regular thing. It was a regular thing up until 2018, which was the Hamada incident on downtown. So yeah, I think I have made a difference in that regard. But there's still a lot of ignorance out there. Not blackface. There's still a lot of things that, other, areas that need addressing. So my
Yeah.
work is far from done, but
Right. But
at least
this
blackface might be a wrap.
yeah, this ties in your blog on your website, ties in to a lot of your Black Eye articles on Japan Times. So if people go to your website, they can see a lot of your blogs, but also links to your stories, right?
They can.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Please do.
yeah. It's a very good website and very easy to navigate around. I'm really happy Japan Times took you on as one of their community writers. I think that Black Eye Perspective article, how often does it happen? Once every few months?
Monthly.
Oh,
Hmm.
monthly? Is it monthly? Okay. And one other one that I really got a lot out of was Black Eye from two different perspectives. Good advertising, two eyes. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to explain a little bit about that article?
Um. Well, if I remember correctly, it was about two different commercials that came out around the same time, and one was, I think, was an English language school, which featured a young African American sister speaking in Japanese. Or not? Was she speaking Japanese? Anyway, it was for an English language school, and she wasn't stereotyped in any way. She was very natural, very normal, just a regular person teaching English, as opposed to, oh, she's a special black girl with blackness. It was just a regular girl teaching English in Japanese. I mean, in a English Japanese English school, and
Yeah.
I thought that was, just that simple, just the simplicity of it, without doing any extra, made it great.
Yeah.
The lack of extra made it extraordinary. You know what I mean? And for Japan, because Japan has been unable to do that since I've been here, to just portray black people as people. They just been incapable of doing that. But this is the first time I saw it, so I had to applaud it in print.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you had another commercial with a black celebrity um, being portrayed kind of buffoonish and stuff. So I was just comparing, contrasting those two those two commercials for that
Yeah, I
particular
love this
piece.
quote of yours from the article. We have endured and overcome many challenges throughout history to simply be treated as ordinary human beings. Whenever my black eye sees that achieved, well, that's an extraordinary thing indeed. And
Mm,
yeah, so beautifully put. I
thank you.
yeah, I appreciate it's a few years since you wrote it. I'm throwing these old articles at you. It's hard to remember, but
I don't remember exactly what I wrote, but it just came back to me with not what I wrote, but just my feelings on it. It's funny that my feelings are right there on the page.
yep.
Yeah.
Exactly,
That's
exactly right. You got it. 100,
yeah.
100 points.
Wow, wow.
Yeah, so
Yeah, that was great. Wow. Okay.
the Japan Times special Black Eye series is also been picked up by New York Times or Washington Post, right? You've
Yeah.
uh,
Well, not the Black Guy series. I wrote op-eds for
okay.
I wrote an op-ed for Washington Post, and New York Times profiled me and my work here. But it wasn't. They didn't take anything from Black Guy. That was just a straight interview with me.
Well, let's talk about the New York Times because that was based on your TED Talk, right?
They covered a lot actually.
Right.
They covered everything. But
Do you
yeah,
want
that
to
was.
introduce your TED Talk first?
Oh, it's up to you.
Yeah. So, Unpacking Your Intangibles was your title. Can I give us a little intro? You can find it on YouTube. It's a great talk.
Yeah, check it out. It's on YouTube. Um, how
Shall
do I
I
explain this?
remind you a little bit?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
would you?
I just watched it today. Um,
Okay.
so you're talking about mono and koto, right?
Mm.
Like mono are things you pack, and koto is more of a mindset and things you don't pack. And it was a great play on words about how you prepare for travel or how you prepare for communication, right? Does that help? No?
Oh no, I didn't need any help with
Oh,
remembering it. I was just trying to
okay,
figure out how best to yeah, I just did it a couple years ago.
okay. Okay.
I didn't forget it. It was
Okay,
actually
okay.
it was one of the most extraordinary things in my life. So I no, it's unforgettable. The
Good.
experience of TEDx in Kyoto is unforgettable, and yeah, I told you we were talking earlier before the show about my fear of public speaking, and that was it. That was the ultimate. So. But I did it. I like challenging myself and challenging my fears, man. And that's the only way you're gonna grow as a human being, I think, is when you challenge your fears. And that's kind of what that TED Talk was about. Living abroad, it forces you to in I think essentially human beings can change if their environment changes. It's going to force them to make certain changes to their character and to their worldview. And I think that's what living in Japan has done for me. But you're going to have it's going to living in another environment is going to force you to unpack certain things you probably weren't even aware was inside of you. And that's what it's done for me, and I wanted to share that with people. And I think many people who lived abroad have experienced that. You know, you really didn't know that like, for example, there's a lot of talk now about like white privilege and this kind of thing. But you know, when I came to Japan or when I traveled abroad, I realized that I had some of that inside of me, this privileged perspective on things. So you're gonna discover some things you didn't know were there,
Yeah.
and once you do, it's gonna change you. It's gonna
Yeah.
change you, and hopefully it changes you for the better, or
Right.
you find a way to use those changes to build character and to make yourself a better person. And that's what I think I've been able to do. I mean, some people might argue that, but I think I've grown wiser and stronger, and my perspective has grown, has reshaped my my approach to the world, and in doing so, I think that's how I've been able to accomplish some of the things I've been able to accomplish since I've been here in Japan.
Yeah. I think
So I just
that
wanted to share that in the
no,
TED Talk.
wonderful. And that idea of privilege is so powerful. And especially now during the coronavirus, you realize, oh, wow, I have a house. I have a little bit of a garden outside. Like, how lucky am I when you're forced to stay at home, that you have space. A lot of
Right.
people
And
living on top
internet and
of
all
each
other stuff.
other.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We got some privileges here. And I, you know, when you're comparing privileges, it gets complicated. But
Yeah.
if you just acknowledge what you have, it's significant. It's significant. You know,
And
people
then,
out there really, really, suffering,
yeah.
really suffering. And I feel like, from my privileged perspective over here, I can contribute and I can do something to try to help the situation. That's what I do. I try to use my energy, use my intellect, use my talents to try to make the world a better place, even from this perspective. Because I know my privilege is flimsy. It could be snatched away in a moment. So I don't. Yeah, I can never rest on my laurels. Never, ever. And I won't.
But
It's just.
but that privilege of being in Japan or being able to travel to Japan, do you want to talk about that a little bit more, like compare to if you were living in America right now? Like that's a huge topic, but in terms, I mean, for me, in terms of medical care, having easy access to hospitals when I want, and I feel very lucky about that. But there's so many other things about America right now which I do not want to live there. And and I love this quote. I love this quote of yours about the US. I feel like a hopeful parent. I want my bad child to do better in the future. I have hope for the future. And I thought, oh man, that struck a chord with me. I was like, exactly how I feel.
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I just feel like, my I'm the child of a I'm the parent of a bully. This child is a bully, he throws history books at the teachers and, you know, touches the girls' private parts. He's a real bad guy, real bad seed, but he's mine, He's mine, and I feel and I don't want anybody messing with him, and I feel like I haven't given up the hope that he's going to be a better person in the future, and I feel it's my responsibility to be a part of that and helping my child, reach his fullest potential. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly how I feel about America.
exactly. And then on the flip side, you are a very long term resident of Japan, same as me, and feel invested in Japan as well and want to make Japan a better place. And I really see that in your work when you
Thank
talk
you.
and in
Thank
your
you very
writing,
much.
definitely. And I'm sure there's people that say, well, you're not Japanese, so why are you saying anything? But this is where you live. This is where you're making a home, right?
This is where I'm building me a home right here in Japan. And like I said in the TED Talk, I really don't think of myself as an American or Japanese. I'm just kind of a global citizen, and this is where I set up shop here. But I don't expect to be embraced by Japan. I was never embraced by America. So basically, I've been homeless my entire life. I've been a gaijin my entire life. I've never been anything. I mean, as an African American, you're born a gaijin. You can't. We were never American, and we're never going to be Japanese. So what are we? We're just kind of these global citizens. Just trying to make the world a better place, make it a place that's sustainable. What's your word?
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah.
And yeah, we're trying to create a sustainable place. A place that a peace that's sustainable, a harmony that's sustainable, and we've never had it. We've never had it as African American, as part of the African diaspora, and probably if we had stayed on the African continent, probably would have had it because of European colonization and this kind of thing. So we just never had it, and I want to get there. And I think right now the momentum behind Black Lives Matter is pushing in that direction. And I'm doing everything I can to keep it going. Yeah.
You had a great interview. I want to get. He lives in Okinawa, and he wrote his thesis on African Americans and Japanese view. Am I?
He?
Yeah,
Oh,
Regin.
oh, 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 Reginald Kearney. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
yes,
That's
yes.
what you talking about,
Yeah,
Dr. Kearney. Yeah, he's the man, the myth, the legend, Dr.
and
Kearney. Hello, if you're watching, sir.
and his
We're not
experience.
worthy.
And
We're not worthy, sir.
your wonderful article about him, an interview with him, and how his kids growing up in Okinawa, and he was always considered gaijin. It goes back to what you were saying. And then once his kids had friends, his kids' friends would be like, no, 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 that's not a gaijin. That's my friend's dad.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So it really struck a chord with me because it's all about connection, right? And like I grew up in Hawaii, and people who are like me are outsiders. We're haoles because we don't look like locals, right? We look like tourists. But if people know you live there a long time, they call you kama'ainas, which is like a different word instead of haole. So
Right.
I always think that of Japan. We need a different word, not just gaijin. We need a word that says this person is invested. This
I
person's
think
here.
there is a word.
Yeah.
It's kind of like inaka but it's a one word that says that this person is insider. He's an insider. You know, he's part of our family as much as a non-Japanese can be part of our family. He or she is part of our family. I forgot the word, but if I think of it later, I'll let you know.
Yeah, let me know. But I think that ties in well with the Black Lives Matter movement that's happening in Japan. Do you want to introduce what's happening as far as you know?
Um, well, I don't think of it as. I'm sorry. Say the question again.
Uh, you were at one of the rallies, weren't you, for Black
Oh
Lives Matter?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I went to the Tokyo rally. This was in Shibuya, in the Shibuya area, and it was fantastic. The turnout was incredible. This was planned by a sister named Sierra Todd, I believe was her name, and yeah, it went really well. It was peaceful. It was a great turnout, and I think that it's gotten a lot of press coverage. It really impressed a lot of people, and I think that moving forward, people are going to see that this is a real thing. This is something that it's not just going to it's not just going to go away. This is going to be sustainable, and we're going to keep it going. We're going to keep it going. I'm going to do what I can. There's a lot of other people here who are doing what they can to keep the movement going here in Japan, and it's necessary here in Japan. It's not like I think a lot of people don't realize how necessary it is here in Japan. I mean, of course, Japan and America have separate histories, but I think the problems that evolved out of the U.S. they they they've been exported to everywhere America has influence, and America has a tremendous amount of influence here in Japan. So Japan, whether they're aware of it or not, have adapted some of those white supremacy behaviors and mindsets from America, and they're not aware of it. So it's up to us to bring it to their attention so they can see for themselves that there's racism here and it's ugly, and maybe it's not a traditional Japanese idea, but they've adapted these white American ideas and they're ugly. I mean, and you can see and you can follow his progress all the way from Perry kicking in the door with the cannons, and he introduced blackface to Japanese people, and they've been doing blackface ever since. This was, this is history. There was no blackface in Japan until Perry brought it with him. And that was and also he brought white supremacy. We're going to force you to open your doors. You open your country to us, and ever since then, there's been this white superiority presence. And then you look towards the occupation after the war, so they get to see the treatment of black people as compared to the white soldiers, and you can see how the white soldiers are treating the black. It's this segregation here in Japan. They're watching this, how we're mistreated as second-class citizens and whatnot. So they learned this stuff from white supremacy, and now they think of it as normal. We are supposed to look at black people as lower or less because this is what white people have taught us to do. So they're not really clear on it, a lot of them. So I think it's our responsibility to make it clear. This is what you're doing, whether you're aware of it or not. This is how you've been looking at us. This is how you've been treating us. It is bad. It needs to change. So that's why Black Lives Matters here in Japan. And you can see it. It's even a couple of weeks ago on NHK. The only reason that type of segment can even be thought of is because it's embedded in their minds. This kind of these racist caricatures, these racist stereotypes that they've caricaturized for that segment, those are embedded in the Japanese mindset. They need to be dislodged. And that's what Black Lives Matters in Japan will be trying to accomplish, dislodging those that embedded racism in Japanese mindset. Of course, it doesn't play out the same way as in America with cops, killing people and stuff like that. It doesn't play out that way. It just plays off kind of microaggressively here and subtle stuff. But also there's some significant stuff like housing discrimination, job discrimination, this kind of thing also goes on here. So, yeah, I think that's what Black Lives Matter in Japan is trying to address. That's what I'm trying to address. I can't speak for everybody. We're not a monolith, but this is the kind of things I want to address.
Yeah, and you wrote a beautiful post, which you gave me permission to reshare on my website. Thank you so much. And it also, it was an exciting project to get it translated into Japanese as well. And it's gotten really good traction, right? You want to introduce that?
Well, it's wonderful when you meet Japanese people, and I've met a lot. This is why I'm still here, because I know that there are many, many, many Japanese people who actually understand everything I'm talking about right now. I don't have to explain why Black Lives Matters to a lot of people here. And one of them is Kenji Osawa. I don't have to explain anything to this brother. So we are talking about this, and we are right here. He's like, you know what? He read the article. He's like, we got to get this translated properly, because he said there's a tendency in Japanese translations to soften everything. And, because I don't know, but he says, it's a tendency that they take the directness and the potency of an English written piece, and they kind of soften it for a Japanese audience,
That is so interesting. I was helping when Obama was in Hiroshima, and he made a speech in Peace Park, and it was a big deal. No American president had ever made a speech in Peace Park while they're a president, right? So I was helping transcribe, and the translators were going nuts, asking me, did he apologize? It was a really big deal. He was very careful in, he's a beautiful speaker. I miss that so much. And it's so flowery, and it's like poetic, right? And they kept asking, this sentence, it sounds like an apology. Is it an apology? Because we have to translate it. Like so careful. So I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. But Kenji decided the best way to go about this is to try to find some of the best translators in the country. So he put together this Twitter project online to try to get a live Twitter project to try to find the best translators out there to try to find the most direct, the most honest translation of my work. I was so blown away by this, we're good friends
worked.
now. I only met him like a couple of weeks ago. Now we're like best buddies. I mean, he's great. He's really great, and he has such an influence on online. So it was I was blown away. I mean, and it's just that kind of energy. Once you put that energy out into the world, this is the type of thing you're going to get. It doesn't matter whether you're in America or you're in Japan. You're going to attract people with that kind of energy. So I feel very blessed that I'm attracting people of that caliber with the energy I'm putting out there. It makes me feel more optimistic about what I'm doing and more positive about what I'm doing. So I feel like there's a momentum right now that has a chance of really resulting in some critical change, and I'm very, very, I don't know, I'm giddy. I'm giddy right now.
It's great. It's really exciting because
it is exciting.
You see the things that you're writing and people responding to, and then having it in Japanese, so you can really tap into the local residents and really they can really get what you're talking about when it's translated.
Not just Japan. I'm talking about globally. I'm seeing, I'm hearing conversations I've never heard before by people who I never thought would participate in these types of situations. I mean, it's just like, it's phenomenal. I'm sure you're seeing it too. It's mind-blowing what I'm seeing now. I mean, I was just talking to my friend today. The BET Awards was on CBS, on network TV. This is something you just never, it's like when Obama won the election. It's like, what? The BET was on CBS? This is barely airs on network. I mean, on cable TV before. Now, it was, anyway. I'm just saying, there's a lot of things that are changing, and some of these things, I think, there's no going back. There's absolutely no going back. I don't know how far it's going to progress, but there's no going back.
A lot of
Too many
people,
people have been awakened thus far. You know what I
yeah,
mean? For it to go
definitely.
back, you can't. There is no new. There's no return to the normal. Those days are over. It's like Me Too movement. You can't go back to those producers molesting women for jobs and stuff. You just can't go back to that anymore. It's done. And it's the same thing with this. I think this is done too. I
So,
hope.
and I feel that too. It seems like so much more momentum is going forward. I was, and I think a lot of people comparing it to the riots in LA after Rodney King. And
Uh-huh.
and then people saying, but nothing really happened. No meaningful change happened after that. But there has been meaningful change this time.
Yes.
Flags have been changed. Confederate statues have come down. There's been change already, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Irreversible change. I'm blown away. Really.
Yeah.
Really, I feel like going back to America, but they might not let me back into Japan. so, so I have to stay here. I want to go home. Well, home. I want to go back to the U.S. I wouldn't
To
say home
be
anymore. I
to
want to go back to the
join.
U.S.
Yeah, yeah.
to just be part of. I mean, the last time I went back to the U.S. with this feeling was when Obama was running for. It was in 2008, and I went to Pennsylvania. I was canvassing, for Obama before Election Day. That's the last time I went to the U.S. with this type of feeling right now. Even though right now there's a damn war zone over there, but I want to be there. I want to be there, but I'm doing as much as I can from over here. You know.
You're doing a lot, and you're doing a lot of good. And there's a lot of great positive momentum happening in Japan, which I think a lot of local people are reacting very positively to, and it's really waking people up, I think.
Yeah, I do think I agree with you. I mean, like we were talking earlier about the march in Shibuya. I turned around and this is not my first Black Lives Matter march in Shibuya. I went to the one back when Eric Garner was, you know, choked to death by the police, and at that time, it was maybe about 500 people or so, and vast majority were black people, or at least more than half was black people. This time, I couldn't find any black people. It was mostly Japanese and white, and I was like, that really moved me. That really moved me. I mean, of course, numbers wise, we are insignificant here, overall, but I expected it to be a hell of a turnout at the march, because that's just has been my experience here in Japan. But I was blown away that there was so much support, non-black support for Black Lives Matters here. I'm sure some of those people were there for trendy reasons. They want to be. Oh, I was 10 years ago. 10 years from now, they could tell their children, I was at the Black Lives Matter march. Like maybe our generation talking about MLK. Oh, I was at the Civil Rights March. But I know some of that was that. But some of those people I was hearing, I was listening to the conversations, and these people were serious, and they were there, for the movement. And I was like, wow,
That's
this is
impressive.
incredible. I was crying. I was in tears half the march.
Yeah.
I was in tears half the march because it was, even right now, I feel it coming, because it's real, it's happening, it's changing.
Well, you've been a big part of that happening. Let's talk a little bit about the NHK Discrimination Project you were a part of. That sounded really interesting. Was that
um,
this year?
which one? Which one?
Let's see. NHK had you worked with two women.
Oh, that was okay. That was last year. And what it was about internal discrimination here in Japan between among the Japanese with a special group called the Burakumi.
Okay.
Are you familiar with them?
Mm-hmm.
So, and we went to Osaka where there are several Black Burakumi communities. We went to one of these communities. We spoke with an activist there, and he was telling us about the type of discrimination that they're still facing. This is 200 years later, and I think when I was first approached about doing that special, the director wanted to, pick my brain to find out, what kind of direction he could take it. And at first I suggested, maybe a black American is not the best fit for this. comparison you want to make between, what's going on here in Japan and what's going on in the States, maybe you should think about, connecting with the Jewish people, because they are an inconspicuous minority. You know what I mean? And they just like the Burakumin, they could blend right into society and disappear. Whereas black people, we ain't going nowhere. We are a conspicuous minority and a target of all kinds of foolishness back in the States. So, but after participating in the program and meeting with the activists in Osaka, I realized there's a great deal of similarities between the Burakumin experience and the black experience in America. I mean, it's almost parallel. The types of things that they've experienced here, the type of discrimination, segregation, the whole bit, the whole thing, even down to soul food, them creating their own dishes and stuff. I mean, it's just, there's so many parallels, so many similarities between the black experience and the Buraku experience. So I'm so glad I participated in it. I learned so much about, Japanese culture, Japanese history. I mean, here's a good example. The taiko, which is Japanese art, would not be possible. It would not be possible without the Burakumin, because they're the ones who dealt with the skins of these animals that was necessary to make the drums. So isn't that so African American? There's no art form out of America without black people, So it's that kind of connection. I just saw it. It was just these parallels between our, the experience of black and the experience of black people in America that was so it was enriching. I felt enriched after that.
That's really powerful, isn't it? Yeah.
It was.
It's something I look for information about indigenous people or Burakumin, or it's really hard to find any information. But being from Hiroshima and talking to a lot of survivors, I understand there's still a stigma, right? Like even for Hiroshima survivors, their grandchildren who might be getting married, the grandparents who survived the bomb still worry that their grandchild's going to be discriminated against with the new family. And so just because stigma never goes away, right?
Right.
So,
well, one of the reasons it doesn't go away is because the ignorance hasn't been addressed. One of the things I suggested during the program was that they, similar to what was done by African Americans in the U.S., a Black History Month was formed. And I'm saying there ought to be a Buraku History Month so that people could be informed about this aspect of their history, because there's no reason for Japanese people to be ignorant about this. It's such a quintessential part of the Japanese experience. Why would they be ignorant of the people who created taiko, of the people who created some essential aspects of their culture? Why should they be ignorant about it? It's ridiculous. Because of the discrimination, they want to keep it quiet, keep it kind of secret. It's nonsense. That's the kind of problems that's the way, if you address problems in that way, they're going to persist generation after generation after generation. The stigma is going to persist, sustain. It's going to continue. That's how you sustain stigma, by ignoring it, by not dealing with it.
And lying to yourself that all people who live here are the same, and having that idea, which is not doing them any favors. Anybody anywhere who thinks that, because even within your own class of students, you have so much diversity, even in Japan, of things that they like and stuff, but they don't feel the freedom to be different in many, because they might look the same, but they're not the same. Nobody is the same. No two people are exactly the same, right?
Right.
I'm sure.
I totally agree.
Yeah. Selena Hoy has joined. She said,
"Hey, darling."
She said she would love a Burakumin month, like a history.
Wouldn't it be fantastic?
History month.
Fantastic.
And then she says, along with the Ainu, the Ryukyu, and Hibakusha history months, great idea.
They each should have one, at least a month. Should be all year long, but we can get a month to start. Yeah. And work our way up.
Well, I mean, we have the August 6th memorial for the Hibakusha. Why not have, the Hibakusha contributed to this wonderful thing that everybody loves, which there are a lot of examples of that, like not just about what happened way in the past, but how are they amazing now? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But it's amazing to me that you had this great experience with NHK and then horrible experience with NHK, and it reminds you how big NHK is, right?
It is big. It is big, and yeah. And it is two different offices. One is Osaka, one is Tokyo, and maybe there's I forgot what you call it, the tate nantoka, where they not communicate with one another. But I think they're taking it really seriously because they were criticized by CDA, Joe Young, and which is basically the American government, and they're taking it very seriously that you know their programming has been viewed as insensitive and offensive, and I think as a result, there's going to be some changes. There's going to be some significant changes, and I'm glad to hear that.
Good.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad
Let's
to hear
let's talk a little bit about your activism and your writing about Naomi Osaka and the
Right.
anime, because that was in the Washington Post as well, right?
Yeah, that's what I did the op-ed on, was about the apology. This is the problem with the apologies, and that's why I was so impressed with NHK, because that last apology, I'd never seen anything like that in 16 years. That was significant. They spent the first, what, 3, 4, 5 minutes of the program apologizing about that segment. And I was and an in-depth apology. I was like, wow, it moved me. Now you compare that with the apology that Nishin Noodles made, regarding the whitewashing of Naomi Osaka, and you'd be like, oh, come on, this is a joke. These guys don't even realize the problem they made. They just apologizing because people got angry. Oh, we're sorry you got angry at our whitewashing. This was, I, it the apology indicated that they don't get it. And I just wanted to write a piece to help them try to get it, take it more seriously, which is the same thing I did with NHK, because their first apology was suspect too. So I wrote a piece for Japan Times about the apology, and the following week they came back with another apology, and this one was, you know, along the lines of pretty much the script I wrote for them in my Japan Times piece. And I don't know. I'm not that I'm telling them how to apologize. I mean, I think they went even further than what I say. I think it wasn't just a result of what I'd done, but they of course there was also CDA Joe Young, but also there was professors out of professors of African American studies here in Japan, Japanese professors, who sent them a letter saying this is why this is problematic. So this is even more heartwarming for me that it's not just foreigners that are addressing these issues. It's Japanese people here who are addressing these issues. That's so much more important than us doing it, because we're our numbers are really insignificant, and our power is suspect too. Whereas the Japanese have the power to change this country, and I think that the more we are able to connect with them, how even the what might seem like an innocuous behavior, it has a negative impact on people, non-Japanese people living here, and biracial people living here, and other groups like the Ainu and Bulakumi and so forth, Okinawans. They all having a very different experience than you know what your government might lead you to believe, or what the media might lead you to believe. So you need to question that shit. I'm sorry. Did I say
No,
shit?
no, no.
You need to question things. You need to some critical thinking is required, and I'm trying to encourage that with what I do.
Yeah, definitely. We have a great comment from My Planet, My Life. Joanna says, thank you so much for this conversation. It's such an important issue. It's so important to talk about this. I also want to believe we can create a better world together. Thank you. Thank you,
My
Joanna.
pleasure. My pleasure. We're on the same page.
Prasanna wrote a comment saying, great to see the passion in your talk. It's inspiring. Thank you, Prasanna. Yeah. Even the swear words. It shows your passion.
I am passionate, yeah.
Yeah. You care about it. One thing I meant to mention about your website, you also do a production company, Hunter Fly, is that right?
Well, that's a different thing. I'm not
Different
gonna.
thing. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
okay.
But I notice in your pieces you're always promoting the good work of others, right? Like good uh, black people running businesses in Japan, or entertainers, or different kinds of industry. And so I thought that might be part of your
Oh no, no,
promotion.
no, no.
No, okay.
Okay.
Um, and okay, so about the NHK stuff and the Naomi Osaka whitewashing, I heard you say in one of the interviews it wasn't just whitewashing, it was kind of like making a manga or anime version as well of what it's like. But recently I saw there's a new manga anime company run by a black owner,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
So
hopefully we'll get more
there's
accurate anime and manga, more representative.
yeah. I'm sure brother's gonna get a lot of work. He's been in the media quite a bit, so I think that he's part of the change that needs to be happening in Japan. I'm so proud to know him. Yeah, Martel. He's a good guy.
That's
So
great. Yeah, I
yeah,
wish him
I
the best. Looks
things
like
things huh?
looks like great company, like really high quality work, and
Yeah,
he's all over the press right now, so hopefully he gets a lot of support.
I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will. And whatever I can do to support him, I definitely will. So
That's good.
yeah,
I
good
don't
guy.
think I don't think we talked in detail about your books. Do you want to talk a bit more about your books?
I don't know if you have any specific questions or if there's any questions from the. I don't know. I mean, my books, basically what I've been talking about, I am my books. Whatever you hear from me, you're gonna hear in my books. And I think the first book primarily was about how I got to be me. How it's not just about my experiences in Japan, but also my experiences in the U.S. and how how they help mold me into the person I am now. And it's kind of it's not your typical experience. I had some very unique experiences in the States, and I think some people will be surprised by some of the things that they read about my background. I'm a product of the Pan-African movement in the 70s, and the 5% movement in the 80s. So I've had some pretty revolutionary background. So but I don't think many people are familiar with these things. So if you want to get familiar with the the precursors to the Black Lives Matters movement, this Black Lives Matter is just the current incarnation of a movement that's been going on since black people were kidnapped from Africa, basically. I mean, this is an ongoing thing, 400 years, and this is just the current incarnation of it. And hopefully, this will be the last. Hopefully, this will be the one where we finally break through. But we've been trying to break through for a long, long time. And my mother was part of the 70s version of Black Lives Matter, the 60s version, and she wanted her kids to be raised as part of that movement. So that's how I got my name. That's how I got my identity. It was forged in that arena, and I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of that, and I think that it it informs what I do now. It really does. And I think if I hadn't had that background, I probably wouldn't be able to do the things I'm doing right now. So I think my mother, she had she saw the future. She saw what I was going to need to be able to do the things I'm doing now. She saw it, 40, 50 years ago. She saw it. So
Well,
God bless
you've
her.
you've been writing since you were in high school, right?
I've
So
been writing since I was in high school. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I was writing the way I'm writing now. I mean, I was writing crap, but people acknowledged it as good. I thought it was. If I read it now, I'd be like, oh, cringing. But people thought it was good. I guess compared to other people, I actually when I talk to people, young people, I ask them, "Are you interested in writing?" They look at me like, "Writing? People actually write things? Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, those manga you read every day. Someone wrote that. What someone sat at a keyboard and had an idea and put it on paper. Yeah, that's right." I'm like, "Yeah." So people don't even think about writing with the younger people, but when I was young, I thought about it all the time because I'm reading Spider-Man and I'm like, I could do this. So I'm writing my own comic books. I'm writing the Black Panther, the Black Spider-Man version. I'm doing all this stuff when I'm a kid. So Yeah, writing has always been a part of my life.
Well, you're a beautiful writer, and you get across such great stories. I think I was listening to your interview with Hikoi Simon,
Oh,
his
Hiko
tag,
Simon, yeah.
and
Yeah, he's a great
he
guy.
was saying when he read your book, "Hi, my name is Local. I'm a racist," and you guys were talking about that, and he said, "I did not expect to cry." He was very honest about crying, that you really hit something deep inside him, even from his background. And I think your ability as a writer to connect to your audience who's reading your book or reading your column, that's powerful. Not a lot of people can do that. So well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Where do you take your inspiration from? Do you have a favorite writing teacher in the past, or people that you like to read their books and they inspire you?
Um, I would say that's difficult. I mean, Zora Neale Hurston, first and foremost. I mean, she's the one, but there's also it's just so many. It's hard to say. It's hard to say, really. Um,
Are you an avid reader? You read a lot?
I am. I am. I read a lot. I read about a good 30, 40 books at least a year. I try to do more, but I, yeah, I read a lot. So I think that you can't be a good writer unless you read. It's not going to happen. I mean, and especially nowadays, you need to be informed. And the only way you're going to really be properly informed is if you're reading. If you're just watching TV, you're going to be partially informed, and maybe it depends on what you're watching. But if you really want to be well informed on what's going on in the world, you need to read. Period. And read books, not just read the newspapers, because the tabloids just put out stuff, and then the next day it's another. It's like it's just filler. It's
Yeah.
filler.
It's
You know,
entertainment, right?
it's
It's just
entertainment
short.
and pure fake news. And if you're not reading it, if you're not approaching the news in that way, you're bugging, you're tripping. Because
Yeah.
it also depends on um, what are your sources. I try to triangulate the truth. So you try to you get the New York Times, you get the Washington Post, you get you know
Google search.
something, yeah, and you try to is the truth is in here somewhere,
Yeah.
and yeah, just want to triangulate it. That's the best I could do because
Yeah.
it's hard to trust any of them because they all been, you know,
Diluted,
diluted and
compromised.
compromise. That's the word, compromised. And of course, you got to trust one of them. You got to
Yeah.
trust something. You can't just think that it's all nonsense. But
Yeah.
it's hard not to,
There,
especially in this day and age. It's like,
yeah, for sure. There are some books that I was forced to read in high school, which I didn't really take in. That my high school kid is reading now, like Brave New World, and he's telling me about it, and I was like, I need to reread that because that is so relevant now. Like that, wow. 1984, all these classic books which are
yeah,
playing
these
out
guys,
right now.
they could see what was coming.
Yeah,
You know,
very smart.
and it's not difficult to see because it's you know history does have a tendency to kind of repeat itself, certain aspects of it rather, and yeah, it's just another version of what was going on at that time. You know,
Yeah,
I
it's an
mean, people were
amazing
so shocked
foresight.
when Donald Trump won the election. I'm like, come on, it's inevitable. If he didn't win, I'd have been surprised. You know, and I don't know. I think maybe it might have been a secret blessing that he won because he woke so many people up.
He really did.
So maybe it's not an entirely bad thing that he won. Maybe he might make America great by accident. He was unintentionally make America great again. Not that it was ever great before, but make America great
But
unintentionally.
it's like you said, a lot of people woke up when he
Yeah.
got into power. The Me Too movement happened. All of this, defund the police is happening. All of the Black Lives Movement momentum around the world is
His
happening.
support of those statue people down in the South is backfiring, and now they're all getting torn down. I'm saying maybe unintentionally, He's making America great. Gotta give Trump some credit.
I just hope it's not for much longer. That's what I hope.
Well, I don't know.
Uh,
We're not done yet, so maybe we might need him a little bit more. We might need his 8.
no, please say no.
Well, anyway, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if the result of his if the result of his presence is what we're getting now, continuing, I want more. I don't care what the cost is, because we had racist presidents before. He ain't the first. He wouldn't be the last if we continued, the way we were going. So I'm not. I don't have a problem necessarily with him being, totally incompetent and racist. If the result is empowering people to bring about the changes that are coming into focus right now, why wouldn't we want him? He's doing a great job. I mean, anyway, I don't want to go political. Go
Yeah.
on.
Well, we already did.
Okay.
For the last 5 minutes, I really like one of your talks. You were talking about zero is the hero.
Wow.
Presumptions and stereotypes are the biggest hurdle to overcome.
Well, that was just my softball way of dealing with racism, because many people, I wouldn't say some people, most people are very uncomfortable talking about race. So there's ways to talk about race without, talking about race, and one of them is talking about people's presumptions, and that's why I started doing workshops with students to get them to think about what kind of presumptions they bring to interactions with people they don't know. You're meeting a new person, do you allow your presumptions to interfere with your interaction with this person? And if you do, what kind of impact do you think that's going to have on the on do you think that's going to be conducive to building a great relationship or not? And once students are thinking about that, they can see the racial elements on their own. I don't have to throw it in their face. They'll come to that conclusion on their own, and they say, "Wow, most of my presumptions are kind of race-based or nationality-based or ethnicity-based,
Or
and they are
gender-based, right?
problematic.
Mm-hmm.
They can be problematic if they're incorrect, and they often are incorrect, because I'm speaking from a position of ignorance. So, I'm being fed by the media, and I'm trusting what I've seen in the media to make presumptions about someone I've never met before, about a culture I've never encountered before. Yeah, the chances of you being erroneous are very, very high, and erroneous and offensive, But that's something that the people have to learn on their own. I don't want to force feed them. Let's talk about presumptions and what kind of things we do. And the students usually came to the understanding on their own that their behavior has been problematic, and in every interaction they should encounter this person with zero on their mind, zero presumptions. If you did that, chances are you'll build a sounder foundation to a sustainable relationship. And
Yeah, a higher quality community,
exactly.
higher quality society. That's part of sustainability for sure. One of the things you were talking about with Charmeleon in the interview was that if people don't sit next to you on the train, or you feel like there's a bit of racism, that really it's a case by case thing, that you can't blanket it as it's definitely one thing or another. And I thought that's really powerful and important to think about from both perspectives, right? That people are case by case, right?
Exactly. People are case by case. Absolutely. And race is often not even a factor in that. Most often, not even a factor in that. It's just people are case by case. So even when I encounter black people, I don't presume that we have some base, because especially here in Japan, I learned that most being here in Japan, matter of fact, not even in New York, because New York, most of the black people I ran into, we did have a base. But here in Japan, I'm running into, people from Uganda and South Africa and, Morocco. And I'm like, I don't have anything. There's absolutely no base. We might share skin color, but it, you know. And yeah, living here has really taught me that. It hammered it home. Of course, I had a bit of it back in the States. I mean, especially New York, where there's a lot of kind of multicultural and kind of environment. But ooh, living here really woke me up. I was awakened by living in Japan as well. So it helped me a lot. And my first book is about the empty seat, you know, but it wasn't about so much. Of course, you know, I'm not backtracking anything. I do think that it's case by case, but I think the for me, the empty seat was more about uncovering who you are. It was more about helping you unpack. For me, it's been more about helping me find out those that koto inside of me that need to be unpacked. You know, and it really helped me a great deal, because I had to create this alter ego. That's pretty much what my first blog was about, Loco Yokohama. It was Loco was my alter ego, you know, and Loco was the one who was unpacking this shit. It was a way for me to kind of keep some distance between, I don't know. Anyway, Loco was this guy who was doing all this unpacking for me. You know, he's my chaperone, not my chaperone. What do you call the guy who does your
Alter
stuff?
ego? No?
No, I mean the guy who does your laundry and
Oh,
does
yeah.
your cleaning.
Is
If you're a
there,
rich person, you got this guy who
oh,
follows you
butler?
around, does your stuff.
Butler?
Huh? Not the butler, but anyway, that guy.
Your
Anyway,
yes man.
Loco was that guy for me
Yeah.
on a spiritual level. But anyway, yeah, that's what the first book is about. Is about unpacking. The empty seat was the centerpiece of that book, and ultimately, how you respond to the empty seat is as much a reflection of you as it is of the Japanese people who are not sitting there or whatever. So that's what the main thrust of that book was, and the main inspiration for that book was. I hope everybody checks it out. You know, you can find it on Amazon. It's available.
Yeah.
And
I just ordered it. It
yay!
takes till the
Thank
end of
you.
next month, unfortunately, because it's so popular.
Yeah.
And everybody's ordering everything from online right now. So yeah,
Yeah,
definitely
yeah,
check it
it
out.
really has picked up. Sales have really picked up during the Corona. So Corona has been good for writers.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Well, that's our hour. Thank you so much, Baye. Sorry.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And
Thanks for having me, Joy.
oh, it was awesome. Great talk. And you have so much passion and positivity and proactive drive. And I appreciate that so much. And that's so necessary here in Japan for a healthy, diverse, inclusive community. So thank you so much for
You're welcome.
everything that you do. Keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm a big fan.
All right.
If you want to find out more about Baye, have a look at his website, baymcneil.com. You're
Baye.
also on Instagram.
Twitter at Baye McNeil, and Instagram at Locohama. Loco, Locohama.
Yeah, check it out. And thank you so much. Let's keep in touch, yeah? All
Will
right.
do.
Have a good day, everybody. Take care.